Welcome, welcome. Another episode, Keeping It Orange and Blue. Joined as always by Urbana's finest, Kevin Ducey. So tonight, of course, Illinois football season predictions as we are 11 days away. But I don't think it'd be right, Kevin, if we did not have, I think we have a three amigo, right, that we always do stuff with. I feel like it's a tradition. We're going to have him on every year. What do you say, Kev?
Well, considering I kicked his ass last year, sure, why not?
All right, we'll see what he's got to say. All right.
I'm back to redeem myself. I'm back. I ain't gonna let that one go.
Hey, 104th episode. That's 2 years if we're doing weekly shows. So
I'm gonna say congrats on the big 100 and then 104 and counting.
Yeah, I think this is is this 105? It should have been anyway. Maybe I didn't switch it.
Okay, well, hey.
Yeah, it should be 105. I should have anyway, but it is.
It's probably pretty close to the anniversary date of our first show.
Yeah. So this is the third season of Illini football that we'll be covering and talking about with the podcast. We started, I believe it was like July or August of the 8-5 season, the football season. The year that we were all really surprised with all the talent that they amassed with that season. I don't think anybody knew how good Devin Witherspoon was and, how good really, that they would be that year. So I'm excited. I've said it before. I know Kevin and me are both big-time Illini football fans. I think we might enjoy it just as much as basketball. I'm not going to say I love it more than Illinois basketball, but I do really care about it. And I think it's good to care about it. And I think that's a good thing. If people are starting to care about it a little bit more, that means that there's actually some talent on the field to watch,
Yeah, I think when I try and think back, I harken back to my childhood, and I'm like, was I more of a fan and in love with Jack Trudeau or Doug Altenberger and Ephraim Winters and those guys, right? And so for me, they run synonymous. I can't choose one over the other. So, but I'm excited. I'm getting more and more excited about this season. I'll have the depth chart. I know, guys, I told you last week it was a very busy week at work. I'll have the depth chart article up this week of projected too deep. I like, obviously, the longer – it's kind of like drafting in fantasy football. The longer you wait, the better it can be for some accuracy because, obviously, some injuries are still going to rear their heads there. But Illinois is staying pretty clean injury-wise, so we'll get that up. But just depth on the offensive line and then the secondary and the wide receivers have me a little bit more excited than I probably thought I was coming into it. Now, I don't know that that's going to change my predictions because as I'm looking over the schedule – it's a tough schedule, man. It is. There's that middle part of the schedule.
Brutal.
That is really tough, man. And September and October are not easy. It'll be how they start and how they finish. It's going to determine whether or not this is a bowl team, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think one thing we can go over the schedule and make our predictions, which is going to be fun. But I think that Kansas game, I think it's just huge to propel them to, which is pretty sure 3-0. Nothing, no guarantees, no locks, but pretty close. If you can, pull that Kansas game out, you're 3-0, and yes, you're going to have three, I think, super, tough games. Really, in my opinion, at Oregon, at Penn State, is going to be the biggest issue. But other than that, yeah. So. All right, Kev, what's the biggest thing on your schedule, the swing game for you? I have Kansas.
I think Kansas can be on there. I think that's really big. Nebraska is really standing out to me right now. And then it's really just like, what do you do in the last 4 games? You finish the season with Minnesota, at Michigan State, Rutgers, at Northwestern. I think it's at – yeah. And – I mean, obviously the Northwestern game is not really a road game, more of a neutral site game playing at Wrigley this year. I think it's how you handle those games because I think you can look at the schedule and if they can come out of those last 4 and 3-1, then you probably are finding yourself into a bowl game because I think that Purdue game. I mean, God, we got to beat them one of these days, man. I think that's really standing out there. Kansas is huge because I think Kansas could be a linchpin between a team that could really fight for a bowl game or a team that could potentially have an 8-win season, right? Because you get some confidence after that one, and then you go to, you got Central Michigan after that. Then you go to Nebraska on a Friday night game, and I don't know what Nebraska is going to be yet. And Nebraska's not played anybody before they play us. I think we're the one thing standing in the way of Nebraska going 7-0 to start the season. The way their schedule lines up,
very easily could. Yeah.
What are they going to do with Raiola? Like, how good are they going to be? Because they could not complete a downfield pass last year. Their leading returning rusher, I believe, is the quarterback, their second string quarterback now. But the defense is going to be really good. I think that kind of lines up with Illinois. You know what? I'm going to say the Nebraska game. I'm probably a little biased because I'm going.
Okay.
So
all right.
Have you ever been to a game there at Memorial Stadium?
This will be my second one.
Okay.
I went with like Shieldhouse and Ferguson and back in those guys' days, and it was so incredibly windy. And I swear I was sitting in the end zone, and the wind took Shieldhouse's pass that he threw to Josh Ferguson on a little underneath cross, and it moved him and he had to reach back, and he barely caught it, and then it would have been an 85-yard touchdown. I mean, you could. I was the all 22 view. You could just see it, but the wind just dragged that ball back. It was unfortunate. But yeah, I think we got smacked pretty good. But no, it's a phenomenal environment. I look forward to going. So
they got great fans there. They show
really
out. Obviously, they got the sellout streak and all that. But it's a tough place to play. And to kind of piggyback off Kev, I think my top 3 games, I'm going to go Purdue as kind of the linchpin because, like you said earlier, this is a game, Illinois, if they have any chance of making a bowl game, they have to win. You got the Ryan Walters coming in back to Champaign after a couple years being gone. You lose to them at Purdue last year when it easily could have, gone either way up until the last, third, fourth quarter. But
the fourth quarter was they just annihilated us.
Yeah. And it was just over. And it to the point where it was almost embarrassing, and hopefully they can use it as a little fuel this year because they got smacked. And so you got to win that game. You're at home. I think tensions will be high there. Energy will be up. My second would be at that Nebraska on Friday night. Tough place. I give them maybe a 35-40% chance to win that game. But like you said, I mean, Nebraska doesn't play anybody until that first game. Can Illinois catch them kind of with their pants down there, maybe not as prepared, not as ready to go for that game, and then probably Kansas third. It'll be a night game, which, by the way, I'm bringing the whole family. We're coming. I'm going to be in town.
All right,
Kansas,
we have to get together. Man.
Okay, put it on the schedule. But even my wife's parents are coming. They've never been to Central Illinois, so we're tailgating. We're doing the whole thing. I would really love to see a packed Memorial Stadium for that because it's a meaningful game. I mean, it's going to be a ranked opponent, and they cracked us at KU last year too. So a little payback there. But I really think end of the day, Purdue is the kind of the key to the success.
It's a must-win game.
It's a must-win. If you want to make a bowl game, you got to win that.
Yep. So, and I get the Nebraska one because think about what that could do for you. Like 4-0 if you can win that. If you get by Kansas, and then I think mainly the reason why I think that Kansas game just because. Then that propels you to have a lot more confidence going into Lincoln, right? And, knowing that we just beat, a team that has Jalen Daniels. So what's Raiola going to really pose for them, in my opinion? Like, Raiola can sling it, yes, but that's going to be his 4th game. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Against, grown men out there. He's still young. And so I think while he may have a lot of arm talent, I don't really necessarily think that it's going to boil down to how many stops Illinois can get. I think it's what Illinois can do against Nebraska's defense because that's where they're going to hang their head. And that's where they're going to hang their hat and their head. Mm-hmm. So it's that defense this year, and you listen to all the interviews with Matt Rule. You watch the Big Ten training camp special with Nebraska. They're saying like, hey, we're not going to ask Raiola to carry us. It's just we know that defense is going to carry this team. They've got a lot of good players back. They were much improved there. And so to me, it's like this Illinois offense, can it score enough points? Can it not shoot itself in the foot like it did last year with multiple turnovers? That demoralizing stop on the goal line last year, and it looked like twice Illinois scored against Nebraska, and they didn't give them one of them on the goal line.
Yep.
So, can you stop the demoralizing plays? And can you score enough against a very good defense there? So, as we get to the predictions toward the end of the show, I think that Kansas game is just huge, with momentum too. Think about that, beating a ranked team as well. It's like so that might be what Bielema's first win over a ranked opponent, and obviously in a couple of years. But I just think that'll be huge. Just thinking that the fans rushing the field and all that momentum and juice that's going to come along with it. I think that's going to be very, very big for them.
Right. I think the challenge with that game is obviously you got Jalen Daniels. He was the preseason Big 12 Player of the Year coming into last year. He only played 3 games. Unfortunately, Illinois was one of them. After the BYU game, he didn't play for the rest of the season.
Right.
And then you've got – so he's back. You've got the top 4 wide receivers are back.
Yep.
You got both running backs back. Neal rushed for 1,200 yards last year. He gave it to us a little bit in that game.
It's their O-line, though. Their O-line, their D-line.
The two things that you can hope for from them when they have the ball is a revamped O-line, and they lost offensive coordinator who's now at Penn State, which we'll talk about a little bit later, which I think will work really well for Drew Aller. And the secondary is phenomenal. So just like I said last year in that game, is that Illinois is going to have to do 2 things to win that ball game, and they fit in the Brett Bielema mold. They're going to have to stop the run, and they're going to have to run the ball. And if Illinois can find a way to do that, and you get a little Uncle Mo on your side, you can, and not you, Bill Mo, but Uncle Mo. But you might be Uncle Mo. We'll call you Uncle Mo. Illinois could pull a shocker there, and like you said, Ryan, it could lead to a lot of momentum moving forward in a season where I think Illinois is a pretty solid football team. It's just the daggone schedule, dude. You've got Kansas top 25 team. You've got Penn State top 10 team. You've got Oregon and Michigan. So you got 3 top 10 teams and a 4th top 25 team. And then you got Nebraska, who barely missed the top 25, right? And then you've got other teams that are just kind of hanging around where you're at, right? Between and probably in this order of where you're at is like Minnesota, or maybe it might be even Rutgers, Minnesota, Michigan State, Northwestern, Purdue, somewhere in that genre. They're all right there. So when you look at Illinois' football schedule on the surface, there's 7 50-50 games, right? And there's 2 you should win and 3 that are most likely losses. Of the most likely losses, obviously, I think the home game against Michigan is the one that it could occur. I mean, that could be the biggest upset of the season.
Yeah.
I think coaching matters in college football, and I know Sharon Moore did a nice job with Michigan when Harbaugh was out. But you don't think those guys rallied around the fact that they were pissed off and it was a really uber talented team?
Yeah.
J.J. McCarthy was the 10th pick in the NFL draft for a reason. I mean, that might be one you can steal. There's been something like I forgot what the number is, but a certain number of teams in the last 20 years that have been a ranked top 10 preseason that finished outside of the top 25. And I'm kind of betting that it's Michigan is that team this year. That is the team that I have a lot of question marks when Jim Harbaugh's won everywhere he's went for a reason. And you lose we saw when you lose guys and coaches what it meant. It hurts.
Yeah, I think they might get some karma on their side throughout the season that knocks them down a peg or 2. I think some regression is coming there. Yes, uber talented. They lost players. I get that. I think that's natural. But you got the 100th year dedication of Memorial Stadium against Michigan. You never know. Crazy things happen in college sports all the time. It just takes one game, one night, where everybody's on the right page and it can happen. So and Bielema has shown he's done it. He's gone to number 9 Penn State and beat them in 9 overtimes. He's beaten a top 15 Wisconsin team at home in year year one or year two?
At Wisconsin, in Wisconsin, yeah.
In Wisconsin, yeah. Every year he finds a way to win one of those types of games, and so I'm with you. I would circle that one as a potential, upset bid there, and a chance to steal one.
And speaking of which, Matt, like, cash in some of your frequent flyer miles. Come up for the Michigan game. We're doing a big Keepin Orange and Blue tailgate for that one.
Yep.
So.
I just might have to, especially
Airbnb. You could stay with me. Like, come on.
I was gonna say we're gonna have some big time fun guests that you're gonna want to. You have a good time. They're gonna just swing by the tailgate. And,
okay, I like that.
Might just accidentally walk by, just it's like, hey guys, what's up? Oh, you guys are here. Oh, it's good to see you. Yeah. So, I know you're busy with your travel schedule, but man, I know September 7th, 6 weeks later, October 19th. So yeah, but it'll be fun. A bunch of the people who watch the show are going to stop by, and I'm working on Kev. Kev and me are working on a spot in Lot 31. So
okay, great.
Yep. All right. So So as we get, I want to talk about some camp stuff, but we're going to get to the season predictions. To me, is the most likely upset game, in your both opinion, Michigan? You think possibly where Illinois can pull one? That's the one.
For me, it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I just feel like the nature of the night, what they're celebrating, the dedication, Red Grange, the jerseys, the helmets, stuff like that matters to college kids sometimes. And I saw it when I coached college basketball. A team would wear a throwback uniform or a different alternate jersey that they just love, and that you just feel different in them. And they come out and they play with their heads on fire, and there's nothing you can do to stop them. And it's just, you feel like you've gone through a buzzsaw. And I'm not going to say, Illinois is going to run away with it, but it's just one of those special moments that you just never know can happen.
Yeah, I don't know what the record was in the Grays, but we pulled off some upsets in those. I remember beating Minnesota. Was it D'Angelo Bentley who picked up the fumble and ran that in?
Oh, that was the bowl season in 2014. Yep.
Yeah, and then we had the Wisconsin game. Obviously, we were in the Grays. 30-point underdog. I remember I was at a work conference that morning, and somebody's like, "What are your Illini going to do today?" I'm like, "Lose by 50." Turn it around into a bowl season.
Yeah.
So I see what you're saying, Matt. There, I think those uniforms are dope. We talked a little bit about last week. Have you had a chance to see them yet?
I have seen them, yes. And I mean, there's only so much you can do with throwbacks from 1923, 24. I mean, come on. But I mean, the outstanding.
The pants are hideous, but the tops and the helmets are nice.
The helmets are 1,000. I mean, they all hand painted. I mean, it's unbelievable what that guy was able to do. There's never been a throwback helmet of that era to look like those.
Yeah. 100%. And I kind of like the tops too, because they've got that. They have like a Michigan type of top where it's like they kind of look like the Michigan helmets up top here, where they have like the pinstripes coming up. Yeah, but the pants are just all solid gold, man. It looks like the Heisman Trophy, kind of.
It does.
It really does. But yeah, so
I'll give them a lot of credit. I mean, they went for it, and I think it's about as best as you can do. So. I'm with you. I really like the tops too. Yep.
So, Kev, would you consider the Kansas one a big upset? We don't know what the line's going to be, but obviously they'll be ranked. But I just meant like of their tougher games, of the year. I think people beating Michigan to me would probably fit into more of like a complete shocker than Illinois beating Kansas.
Yeah. I think obviously from a national standpoint, beating Michigan will hold way more value, right? You got the defending national champions. I think that'll add some fervor to the building. By the way, tickets are going pretty quickly there. I've got a whole crew of family coming in for that one, and it was kind of interesting. Is in the past, I've always just held out. Like I just go to a tailgate and wait for somebody to hand me some tickets. And hopefully, unfortunately, that's the case at Illinois. Hopefully, that's not the case this year. But I think you're going to see closer to a full building for that one, and. But it's still Michigan, and I think that will carry a lot of weight. I don't think that will be an undefeated Michigan team coming into that point. I think they will have lost at least at Texas. I believe it's at Texas. So, but I think from a national standpoint, it will probably be somewhere between a field goal and a touchdown dog against Kansas, depending on what we do against Eastern. I don't think it'll impact it that much, but if we struggle, that line might move. But it's Kansas, right? I mean, they're a more futile program than we are. I mean, I was reading some. I mean, they've just had just really a dog shit program for a long, long time. I mean, their ineptitude is way worse than ours, and so I think the common fan, the common sports writer will just, Kansas lost a tough game at Illinois. It's a 50-50 game on their schedule. I've read a bunch of Athon and college football news stuff leading up to today. So, yeah, I'd definitely say the Michigan one, because Michigan shows up as a likely loss and a likely win, depending on whose thing you're looking at it, just about every prognosticator. So that would definitely be the bigger upset. I do think Illinois is probably more built to beat them, to be honest, than Kansas. I worry about Kansas has so many weapons on offense and a really, really good secondary.
Yeah.
It depends on Kansas's O-line. If Kansas O-line is a problem, that rebuild O-line. Now we have a rebuild O-line, but we think we have a lot more depth, and we're not as ingratiated with what's going on at KU. We'll see. But I mean, I'm going down the line here, and Jay Bagan, you might be right. I might be pulling the lever, brother. We'll see. So.
All right. Well, I'll give my prediction first. I think we talked about our biggest upset. We talked about our the X Factor game, and I'll even give the games that I think Illinois is going to win. And so we'll start out with Eastern. So I think Illinois is going to put a big one on them. I don't know, maybe 50 burger, but they're going to score over 40. I think they're just going to pound the rock on them. Illinois, just from hearing how dominant they're kind of going against Illinois' defensive unit, and they've got some dudes on the defensive line. It's more just the depth at D-line. But, they got nasty guys up front. When you're adding J.C. Davis and, Priestley are just they're just nasty. They're maulers, and that's what Bart and Brett love. And it sounds like Gesky's just improved so much, and healthy
Right.
Chrysler. And you just got, so many guys you can play. Brandon Henry want. Kreutz has grown leaps and bounds. And then you got a guy like Wigginton who can play the center spot. They're going to have a more Brett Bielema type offensive line that he was used to at Wisconsin, and that we were hoping that we would get with Brett Bielema coming. So I don't know how Illinois won't put over 40 on Eastern if they're not, unless they're, fumbling the ball a lot or something. So got Illinois winning that one, handily, 28 points or more. And then I have them beating Kansas week 2. I think they're going to be able to run the ball on Kansas, and just hearing from Pat, they might have a really good secondary at Kansas, but Illinois with Pat Bryant and Zachary Franklin are going to be a tough tandem duo to deal with. And maybe they'll have 2 guys that can do that. But you're hearing emergences of guys in the wideout unit that I think are going to surprise a lot of Illini fans. So we'll get to that later. But I've got them upset in Kansas, the 9. Also, Brett Bielema does not forget past seasons, even with friends, when his teams get slapped around. And I think it was 31-3 at halftime last year. And yes, they made a comeback, but he doesn't forget that. He's pretty decent at those return games when that happens. So I know that the team will be ready and prepared for that one. And then I've got them losing later on.
You got Central Michigan as a win, right?
Yep. So 3-0. Then I've got them. I actually have them splitting. I have them splitting Nebraska, Penn State. I have them losing at Oregon. I have them losing Penn State, losing Oregon. So 4-2, beating Purdue at home.
Michigan.
I think. Yep. I want to say a win, but I'll say they lose that one. Will be 3 losses, and then they'll split one of the final 2 with Rutgers. I haven't beaten Michigan State, who's and Minnesota at home. Brett Bielema's got flex number, and it's first year for Smith at Michigan State. They really don't know what they have yet. I think they're going to eventually be a really good program, but this is year one, and it's in Champaign. I think they'll win that one, and then they're going to split one of the final two at Rutgers and Northwestern. I think Rutgers is going to be tough. So I think Illinois. I'm going to say 8-4 for Illinois this year. And that's me being and worst case scenario, I got 7-5, but I'll stick with 8-4. So that's where I'm going with this year. I think it's going to be a lot more improved, more of what we would have hoped we would have seen from last year. All right, you can go. You're up, Kev. Go for it.
Yeah, so I'll just take EIU and Central Michigan. We'll just call those dubs, right? I think this is Brett Bielema's Illini. This isn't necessarily Lovie Smith. We don't lose those games. I go back to like the seasons, even when we made the bowl season, when we beat Wisconsin, Michigan State, we lost to, was that Ohio?
Yeah.
Eastern? Yeah. It was bad. Josh Ramadabebe tried to bring us back. I got Kansas as a loss. At Nebraska, loss. That's just, I mean, now I could give Kansas the win there, us the win there, because the same reasons I'm predicting Nebraska lost Friday night game at Lincoln, tough place to play.
They're going to start out 2-2 in your opinion, or 2-3.
2-3, yeah. Because I just listen. It's a really good Penn State team. I think the addition of the KU offensive coordinator is going to help that team. I think they're a sneaky pick to win the league this year. I like them better than Michigan. I don't know where I put them in the Ohio State. I don't like them as much as I like Oregon. Oregon, I think, is the best team in the conference this year. I'm going to take Purdue as a win. Got to beat them eventually. They lost everything on offense other than Devin Maccabee and Hudson Card, Devin Maccabee, and their tight end. That's the only production they really have coming back from a skill player standpoint. So they got to take a lot of these transfers. I don't think the offense was that good last year. The defense certainly wasn't that good. I do think they'll improve a little bit under Ryan Walters this year. Michigan, I just can't call it a win. So I'm going to call it a loss there. At Oregon, loss. Minnesota, like you said, had flex number. It's at home. I know they've got a transfer quarterback there. Name's eluding me at the moment, but I think we win there.
Max Brommer. Yeah.
Yeah, like a D2 guy, right, or something?
Yeah.
Or
Brosmer,
FCS quarterback, threw for a bunch of yards. Probably an upgrade over Talik Manis, who's going to be Rutgers starting quarterback this year. It's going to be kind of interesting. Like Rutgers is going to like resonate like 1930s Big Ten or Iowa from an offensive standpoint. I'm gonna call a win there, and I'm gonna call a win against Michigan State.
So 5-5 heading to the final two. Okay,
and then I'm gonna say we're gonna win the Northwestern game at Wrigley. Listen, Northwestern was freaking fool's gold last year. They fumbled 13 times and recovered, and the opponent's cup recovered one of them last year. They had a 2+ turnover margin in 5 games that helped, and they were 5-0 in those games, including the game against us. They just had a lot of freaking luck that fell in their lap last year. I think those things kind of even themselves out.
So that's 6-6.
Yeah, 6. I'm calling 6-6. Sean, no, Devin Maccabee's not an NFL running back. He's too small. He's not fast enough, and he fumbles too much.
So there's the answer to that. Kev did turn around a little bit. I thought we'd get him to get a bowl season out of him, which I'm happy that you're agreeing that there's enough there.
I think the Michigan State game is the game. Like if it goes the way I'm thinking, that's the Michigan State Minnesota got to figure out a way. The last 2 home games of the year, senior day, figure out a way. Like we shit the bed a couple years ago when we had Purdue and Michigan State in those games.
Yeah,
got to figure out a way to win both those games. You win both those games, then you maybe steal one against Nebraska, steal one against Michigan, steal one against Kansas. One more, you're like 7-5 or 8-4. And now it's 8-4 season's a phenomenal season, and it can really start revving the engines up. And then you got 8-4 in 2 years, 2 out of the last 3 years. It'd be nice.
And Jay Bagan, I want you to know we can take I have no problem switching the Michigan home game with the Nebraska away game. I think Illinois is going to win one of those, and it might be more likely that it's the Michigan game. I think Matt is on board with Jay Bagan. Go ahead, Matt.
Jay, I got you, my man. I have the exact same results of every game Kev just called out, except I'm flipping Michigan to a win. I just feel it in my bones. I went from either this is a 5 to 7 win team in my heart is what I thought. I went thinking about it all day. Vegas has the odds at 5.5 over under wins. I'm thinking 6-6, 7. 5. I'm going 7-5. I think Illinois finds a way to get to 7 wins. Bielema has taken a step. Year 4 when he was at Wisconsin and won 10 games, and then after that won 3 straight Big Ten titles. Went to the Rose Bowl 3 straight years. I don't know. Year 4 maybe.
Here, Matt's fallen. Illinois 3 straight Big Ten titles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would do a lot for that, but I'm just calling a Michigan win there. I just feel it, and I'm going to give the Illini 7-5 and back to a bowl.
I think that Michigan win will certainly change the fundamentals and the dynamics of the Minnesota and Michigan State games.
Absolutely,
because you go to Oregon after that, and it's a game that it's just one of the toughest places to play in college football.
I know, and that's the sad thing is I hope that does not deflate them because
I don't think it will.
They're going to be on such a high if they can win that game. They'll be like, "Hey, you got to go play the top 2-3 team in the country."
Yeah,
right?
and you know what? Maybe Matt and I take that, and we take Oregon minus the 31 because you have a letdown Saturday. But normally, after a letdown Saturday, you have a pick back up game, right? I mean, that's you come back home, you right the ship, and you figure the thing out. I think that'd be huge. Furthermore, like you get Minnesota at home, and then you get the second bye week of the season right after that to kind of right the ship there. So that might work. I mean,
before you go to a Michigan State team that's kind of reeling and rebuilding, that
I think Michigan State will show some things, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Cornerstone Mexico says Illinois is winning 4 games. I don't.
It could happen.
It could
happen.
It could, and let me tell you this, and if it does, then Brett Bielema will be on the hot seat in year 5. So, and that's okay. That's what's going to happen. So there's enough talent this year to get to a bowl game. And I wrote an article about it, Matt, about a month ago that, it was like put up or shut up for Mike Farrell Sports.
Yeah.
You can't go into year 5 only making 1 bowl game. So,
no.
That it just is what it is. And Cornerstone may not be a Bielema fan, but that's okay. I actually like what he's done with the program, and I think he's a more than adequate coach. You don't build up and raise Wisconsin back to getting back to Rose Bowls and winning Big Ten titles if you can't coach. You know what I mean? Like he didn't just get lucky over and over again.
Well, even furthermore, you can go look at his tenure at Arkansas and look at where they've been since he's left and say, I'm not calling a Frank Solich, Nebraska situation there, but it is. He might have got the boot a little bit too soon, but I mean, I think Brett Bielema's raised the overall professionalism of the organization. So,
yeah. So 8-4, 7-5, 6-6. We all are believing that the team will get to a bowl game. I think I was 9-3 last year, Kev. You were 10-2, so I've dampened down a little bit. I think I said 7-5 for Mike Farrell Sports, but I think I'm just going 8-4 because I just feel like they're going to pull one that's going to surprise some people. So, Now, we talked a little bit about it. We're going to go to just what I've been hearing out of camp.
Hey, one quick question, just for you two guys.
Yeah,
Matt, having been closer to inside a college locker room, and understanding that there are friends, and we saw this directly. There are friends that cross over sports, right? Athletes hang with athletes. You don't need to be a basketball player to hang with a basketball player. You're going to hang with a football player. And most notably, the revenue sports hang with each other, right?
Yeah.
Do you think there's some fire inside that locker room when they play Kansas because of what happened to Terrence Shannon?
Yeah, it's a great point. I think there would be, absolutely. I mean, they know they got the raw deal there, and we're all hanging out together, after the game. And so I'm sure there's some animosity towards the situation. Now, I think it's probably the flame has dwindled a little bit because of the outcome of what happened, which rightfully so. But,
sure.
I think absolutely there's
add a smidge of motivation from that
absolutely
side.
Yeah.
Right. And I talk about this, and Matt and I talk about this on Fade the Deuce a lot. It matters more in college sports than it does in pro sports. Like there's levels. there's no such thing as bulletin board material in the National Football League. I'm sorry, it just doesn't freaking exist.
They don't care. It's a business.
It's a business. Yeah. So I think at the college level it does matter. So maybe that comes. I just felt like I just had that thought pop in my head, and I'm like, maybe. Sorry, Ryan, for interrupting you there. So
no, it's okay. But yeah, with just different things I've been hearing too for fans, they had a scrimmage on Wednesday. It sounds like, anything thrown to Pat Bryant or Franklin's getting caught. Lawfrey has been impressing a lot. I think behind Fagan, he's going to get the most reps, attempts. He's a threat right now with speed. One of the fastest players on the team, if not the fastest. Luke Altmaier's been making a lot better reads and decisions, and they feel a lot more confident with him going into this season. And, rightfully so. It's his second year where he's actually the man. So, you would hope that. I already addressed earlier the offensive line that is much, much improved. And there's some guys on the offensive. Capka Jones has been really impressing Kevin. Over the weekend, had some people who are in the quarterbacks club who, the boosters for the football program, and they were able to watch practice. And they they told me what they saw, and they asked who this Capka Jones guy was. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Who is he? I said, he's 6'4"-ish, got really good hands from a junior college in California. Yeah. And they said he was impressing them on Saturday. So he's going to be a guy, along with Colin Dixon, a freshman, that's really going to emerge where they have more talent at that wideout spot. Remember when I talked about that in my Kansas prediction, that there's guys that are going to be names that you hadn't heard much of before that are going to be very impressive, I think, that can help Franklin and Pat Bryant. Sounds like Wilcher's ready to go. He can be like an Isaiah Williams, by the way, who's looking good in the pros right now, right? For the Lions.
He's gonna make the Lions roster.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Just how many hats Isaiah Williams can wear is something. Being a 5-tool player or whatever that is, they say is important to just do whatever the hell you can.
And that's exactly why he will make it.
Yep. So Wilcher's ready to, I think, take that role from Isaiah Williams, what he did last year, and then they got Sanders too, who's a burner, who had a touchdown reception, a big time touchdown reception in the scrimmage.
I've heard Colin Dixon showing out too and making some press to probably see the field. So that wide receiver room is deep. That wide receiver room is going to give the team and Coach Stepp the opportunity to look at it like, hey, dude, you half-assed it on this block. You're out.
Yeah,
I don't care. You might not play the rest of the game. And I think the same thing's going to happen for the secondary. The secondary is deep enough for like, hey, dude, you did like you spit in the guy's face. You're not playing the rest of the game, like or whatever, or the rest of the week. Next week.
Caleb Patterson is really moving and impressing in the secondary. So him, Terrence Brooks, Xavier Scott, Torrey Cox, Tyler Strain. They're deeper, and I didn't even mention Matt Bailey or Miles Scott in the safety positions. There's a lot of talent there. It's the depth of the D line, I think, is a concern for some, because the depth is young. Alex Bray and some other guys who really haven't had tons of big time reps. So we'll see how that goes. But T-Ron Edwards and Dennis Briggs, along with Jacobs and a very good outside linebacking crew with Seth Coleman and Jacobs. So answer a couple questions here real quick before you had any other comments, Kevin or Matt. Will the line be good enough to protect Luke? Yes, it will.
It should be better than last year.
As long as J.C. Davis is healthy, like that's huge. Left tackle is a concern there. I don't feel real comfortable. It's the only position on the offensive line where I don't feel comfortable with a backup, and that's completely different than we've seen the past couple of years on this football team.
Are we getting any hoop talk tonight, or did I miss it? Probably not much. I mean, I can't stop them if they would like to talk a little bit about it. But, I mean, we're getting this close to the football season opener, and basketball is going to have plenty of time. I think we've talked about it so much over the summer. Anything to be concerned about with Luke not being named a captain? No. And I know that the coaching staff has kind of made it seem like it's not a huge deal. I don't think that they're going to talk about it as if it is, even if it was, because obviously then you're going to worry the fans and stuff. But I think the fact that his play and they see what he can do is leadership enough for them. I don't think he's as vocal as maybe they would want for a captain with the players who voted for that. But from what Brett said in the press conference I read, he said that Luke was the next offensive player voted who would have been a captain. So I'm going to guess next year he'll probably be a captain. But that doesn't bother me.
And one, I think, who was it? Sean Gardner, who is Michigan QB. That's kind of one of the reasons why I'm picking Illinois here for a potential upset. They got 4 guys, and one of them is Jack Tuttle. And I would think he would start the season because he's the only one with any experience. And this guy, he's 7th year. He was a 2018 prospect. It's his 7th year in college. He's got 22 games under his belt, 16 at Indiana, and I think 6 at Michigan. And 5 of those were starts, 5 out of the 22 games. Now, the other guy, there's no other person with starts in the Michigan.
Olaji, is that his name? Olaji?
Yeah. He's on
played
there
a lot last year, but more in just like wildcat.
Exactly. He was a 3-star in 2022. He's a junior now. 9 games played, 0 career starts, 101 passing for 5 yards.
I hear he's at the top of the depth chart, though.
Okay. He very well could be. 21 carries for 123 yards and 3 TDs. So I think it would be between those two. The other is a walk-on. And then there's one more that I think junior, 7 games played. So, I mean, you never know, but.
Does Drew Henson have any eligibility?
Yeah.
Bill Moe asked about Melvin Priestley being a question mark. I don't think there's any questions from his physical abilities. He's a little tenacious, but I also believe there's substantial quality backups behind him. Whether it's, I think they want to keep Whitenack inside, but you can move Whitenack out there. But there's also Moeller and Henderson that can move into the right tackle that I think are a slight step down, but I don't think it's a major one. And so I also think Chrysler's healthy enough that he could do that if need be. He wasn't healthy last year to start the season when we started him at right tackle, and it was an abomination there. Brandon B., if I were buying an Illinois football and basketball jersey, what would I buy? Basketball is as easy as it get. I'd buy a Dre Gibbs Longhorn jersey. That's that. I mean, come on. There'd be no other answer for me or Ryan right now. And in football, I'd probably buy a Caden Fagan jersey or Aiden Lawfrey.
Yeah.
Or Hank Beatty. I'm a little biased to the East Central Illinois kids.
To the 217, yeah.
Yeah, and Caden Fagan ran behind my nephew in high school. So as a sophomore, my nephew was a senior there. So. Yeah,
I don't think you can go wrong there. I mean, but Franklin and Pat, give Pat Bryant some love, right?
He's breezy.
Yeah, PB13. I mean, it's his 4th year at the program. Remember, one thing about Pat Bryant that Bielema gives him love for is he was committed to Lovie Smith's staff. Remember that, and he chose to stay here and be coached up by Brett and their staff. And anytime a guy does that, that's really kind of like a leap of faith, right? Like, like, hey, I'm here. I know everything about them, but this is whole new thing coming in, and I'm going to trust you guys to help me succeed. And they have. I mean, I think he's on path to be a guy who could be drafted, similar to
absolutely.
Casey
I was just going to say that. Yeah,
Casey Washington vibes, if not even higher.
Exactly.
So I nothing but proud. I'd buy a Pat Bryant jersey. Caden Fagan, you'll be buying his in the NFL in a couple of years for sure.
I'm buying Odaluga and Matt Bailey would be my guys on defense.
Yep. Bailey and Odaluga are very impressive.
Seth Coleman's got
There's some dudes though that look like Lou Hernandez. Was like Odaluga. Yeah, Seth Coleman is a man. I know he is a grown man. He's 23, but and then you look at Odaluga. Yeah, Oda Luca's a bodybuilder. So, there's guys on there that are looking like Body by Lou from the old Britt Miller and Rashard Mendenhall days. One thing, and we talked about it, so I wanted to mention it on here before we get to final thoughts, and plenty of golf to talk about, probably, Kev, right?
A little bit.
Yeah. So we talked about, top 3 defensive backs in the last 25 years. And I was so glad that I saw Eugene Wilson's picture, because I just remember him and like how solid he was, how dependable, he was. And I just remember the big gold earring, like the Jordan earrings he would wear.
The hoop. Yeah.
Yeah, he had those. I was like, dude, made it look cool, So I was like, I always remember him, and then him being drafted by the Patriots and winning some Super Bowls. So that brought up, I'm thinking, who are the best defensive backs? And I'm like, well, we have to mention Witherspoon, and then you got to mention, rest in peace, Vontae Davis. And going back and watching that Rose Bowl against USC, Vontae Davis had a hell of a game. I was just watching. I don't really like to go back and watch it, but just watching it because it was on Big Ten Network, I'm like, man, you could tell like this dude belongs in this game, and he ended up being an All-Pro at least 1 or 2 seasons in the NFL. So, but then you got to throw Eugene Wilson in there. I saw that you had pretty similar thoughts, Kevin.
Yeah, I think they're the top 3. I think after that, you're looking like Alan Ball, DeRay Hicks from a corner standpoint. Both guys who had really long NFL careers. Probably better careers than most people thought they would have.
Yeah, Alan Ball's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to think. Was it Christian Morton?
Christian Morton, yep, absolutely.
St. Louis, Illinois.
Yeah, I just remember him being like,
yeah,
converted guy who was dangerous on punt returns, right?
Yeah,
yep, absolutely. It was awesome. Eugene Wilson, like huge against Penn State in the Sugar Bowl season. Couple picks, got a pick late. Great punt returner, one of the best punt returners in school history. So that was pretty awesome. And then Billy Moe dropping my guy Craig Swope. Got to meet Craig Swope when I was just a little kid. My godfather was his attorney. Craig Swope, Florida dude. He can knock you out. Hardest hitter for me, I got to go with Tyrone the Grenade Washington, number 4. That's my guy. It's for the hardest hitter we've had. So.
Hardest hitter. What I love to see, and I know we mentioned it on here last week, Matt, was Kirk was like, he was asked on X, who was the hardest hitter you ever dealt with in college, Everybody was looking for somebody like, he's like Dana Howard by far.
I did see that. I did. Yeah.
Yeah. He was like Dana Howard. He's like, that dude had Simeon Rice and Kevin Hardy back there with him. He's like, he blindsided me a couple times, And I was like, yeah, he's like that. And I'm like, yeah, dude's a college football Hall of Famer for a reason.
And he had like very consistent number of tackles every year from freshman to senior year. They were like within 5 tackles every year. Just a model of consistency. Unbelievable. So I'll never forget him, the big shoulder pads. I mean, he was a college football linebacker. He was
inch or two taller, step or two faster. He would have been an NFL star.
Yeah, I'm glad they're bringing these back this year.
Me too. I like them.
I love them. Yeah. So those are the helmets that I grew up. When I was watching Illinois football. It was the Lou Tepper, Simeon Rice, Kevin Hardy hand the ball off to Robert Holcomb 45 times. That's what I got used to. And I told Kevin on this podcast that's what I thought football was.
Right.
Because I was like, people will pass it sometimes. I go, what? Like, you can throw it? I was like, I just thought you had like this hoss and he just run it 50 times a game, man, and put up 235 yards. I just thought that's how it went. But
when I was a kid, we were the Texas Tech of the Big Ten, dude. We threw the ball more than anybody, and that was cool. Like, it was like we went from Dave Wilson to Tony Eason, Jack
Trudeau. Yeah.
Jeff George.
I had no idea that Jeff George was the quarterback like 3 years before that.
I know. Totally flipped the script.
Yeah. So I just remember those 6-5 or 6-7-4 seasons where they probably had the best defense in the country, but we just couldn't score enough to win more than that.
Yeah. Lou Tepper believed the punt was the best play in football.
Yeah. Yeah. With a defense like that, probably. Right.
I have a story about Lou Tepper. They were playing at Michigan State, And Matt, you'll find joy in this because you've sat inside college locker rooms and you just understand the psyche of those guys a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And my buddy was an All-American recruit at Illinois, chose Illinois over Iowa, Notre Dame, a couple Tennessee, big schools. And I'll never forget this. And he's like, and guys, they're at Michigan State. We're going to win today. And you know why we're going to win? Because the band is here.
And I'm sure those guys were like,
what
yeah.
band? What band? FAMU Rattlers? Like, come on. Like,
there's something to be said when you're coaching and having the presence of your locker room. And that was probably not it.
I forget who their
coaching does matter, people.
They had an offensive coordinator with a weird name.
Denny Martian? No, he's defensive.
He was DC, the watermelon eating champion.
Yeah.
They had an offensive coordinator who was like at Dartmouth the last 10 or 15 years now. But his name, I read an article about it. He was Lou Tepper's offensive coordinator. He has a real funny name.
Man.
But I'll look it up at some point. But I might, while Kevin's giving his final thoughts with golf, probably I'll look it up. And I'll remember. But Kevin will probably be like, oh, yeah, that's right. But yeah, so outside of, football camp and, the excitement of college football coming back, plenty of things going on with Illini, guys who've either graduated in whatever sport they're, we mentioned Isaiah Williams a little bit earlier. I'll probably bring up one or two guys working to try to make a team too. But Kev, anything catch your eye, Illini related in this last week?
No, I'm just sitting here. First of all, I'm really excited for basketball practice to start. This team has the potential to like blow our minds.
Yeah.
Good or bad, right? Brad Underwood's got his work cut out for him. He's got a lot of friggin' talent on the roster. But we're coming out of camp pretty healthy. I mean, Cole Rusk, what I'm reading more and more is it was a fairly significant loss.
Yeah.
The D-line depth is a concern, but we're coming out of this. Mason Merrigan, Cole Rusk, like we're pretty healthy coming out of camp, and that's a big thing. We got depth at running back, we got depth at receiver, we got depth in the secondary, we got depth on the O-line. All three very critical positions, 4 critical positions to have depth at, and I'm starting to get a little more bullish on this team. So especially when you look like depth, where does depth matter? That last 4 games of the schedule are all 50-50 games.
Yes.
So that's where you're going to have to figure out, are you going to make a bowl game or not? How you do in those 4 games? And what my prediction was 3-1. That's what's going to get them there, right? And I don't think 2 unless they find an upset with Kansas or Michigan or Nebraska. 2-2 doesn't get you there. The way you get there is by having depth, especially those positions. D-line depth does scare me, but maybe somebody like a Jeremiah Warren really steps up. So who knows?
Yeah, and go ahead, Matt. I'll let you take next with your final thoughts, and we're glad to have you back.
Yeah, it's great to be back.
Maybe, if you don't mention it, maybe I will. I think we might be back for another season of Fade the Deuce, possibly. Is that it?
I'm coming back, baby. I'm on my redemption tour against Kev here, and I'm really excited. We're going to do Fade the Deuce again starting maybe week 0. We'll see if we can work out the schedule this coming week. If not, we'll be ready for week 1, but we'll go head-to-head, picks against the spread. We'll pick 5 games during the week that we like or of interest to us or national interest, and we'll make it fun. We'll try to add a little wrinkle from last year, maybe one pick that's worth 3 points instead of 1 or something like that.
Yeah, I like it.
With our lock of the week, maybe, and just have fun with it. And if you don't follow me on Twitter, but whatever, I'm a big gambling guy. So this is the best time of the year. Getting into late August, everything ramps back up. College football is here to stay for the next however many months, and you really can't beat it. So I'm really excited to be working alongside you two again, and thanks for having me back.
Hey, Matt, can we get some college football weather where we're at, bro?
Man, it was 105 here today.
I know. I mowed the yard at 2:00 today. I thought I was going to die.
and it's supposed to be 107 tomorrow, and then
Bruh.
it takes a little dip. But man,
Woo.
I'm good for it.
Yeah, I think a couple things here. I think Greg Landry's not a weird name, but I know he was one of the
Paul Shadell.
Paul Shadell. Okay, all
He
right.
sucked. He's terrible.
He had two OCs at Illinois, from what I remember.
No, Greg Landry was, dude.
Okay.
Greg Landry was my quarterback coach at quarterback camp at Illinois, way back in like 1993, 94. And Greg Landry was a damn good offensive coordinator. And the problem was him and Lou just did not agree on a couple things. And like, I know Greg liked to drink some beers, smoke some cigarettes, chase some women, and like that. Lou Tepper was just a really like button-up guy. And there's other things. Jeff Johnson has gone into it in great detail. Like, yeah, Paul Shadell, yep. And so yeah, they ousted Greg Landry. It was one of the worst things Illinois ever did. Was if we would have kept Greg Landry, that dude was a really good offensive coordinator. That was a mistake Tepper made.
That was the Johnny Johnson years, right? He was the OC.
Yeah.
Yeah, benching him for Scott Weaver there. I don't know if that was Shadell or Landry, but that was, oh God, that one drive me.
That was bad.
Yeah, so just real quick, so excited to have the Fade the Deuce back. But yeah, so it looks like there's some former Illini from last year's team. I think Paddock just got a lot of mop-up duty. I mean, he played a lot. You know, I'm thinking he might be able to play himself into probably a practice squad, I think.
Well, they keep 3 quarterbacks now as part of a rule in the NFL.
Which
so
would
I don't
be
know
really cool for him to think about that. A guy who was just a backup at Illinois got a chance to just show what he could do because of an injury, and he, throws for over 1,000 yards in 2 games.
That's just crazy.
And he could just get a contract and be on an NFL team. Just boom. So that's kind of neat. And there was a question, do I think KC Washington will make the Falcons? Yes, I do. Yeah. I also think Isaiah Williams is going to make Lions. Here's one. Is Keith Randolph going to make the Bears? Yeah.
I think he's starting practice squad.
Okay.
He played a lot in the second half, had some good moments, had some bad moments, recovered a fumble. I watched every snap of his. That's the only reason I watched really the second half. As a Bears fan, I don't really care for preseason games other than to watch the Illini. He did okay. I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm with Matt. He's a practice squad guy, probably.
I think it's a little more of he's out in front of his skis a little bit at that level. Not saying he can't get there. I think it's fast for him right now, and he's still learning. I watched a little, like as Kev did. I didn't watch every snap, so don't, I'm sure I missed some plays, but the talent's there. He's got a chance.
He showed some things.
He showed some things. I think he'll start on the practice squad with, hey, guys get hurt all the time. There's going to be an opportunity.
Yeah, that's really all you can ask for in the NFL is like once you make that practice squad, you really have to prepare every week. Like, hey, I might be playing this week. So yeah. Well, anyway,
I always said when I was coaching college basketball, if you want to be a pro, you got to be a professional every single day of your life. And that that's just not basketball related or football related. That's how you take care of your family or your kids or your finances or whatever it may be, your personal life,
your nutrition.
Be a pro. If you want to be a professional, be a pro in every aspect of your life. So he's got to be prepared, or it's not going to work.
Well, look, the guy from France just signed an NBA deal. The number 7 guy for France, by the way, he played against the U.S. Olympic team. He just signed an NBA deal. And that's the kind of thing that you need to do, is that maybe Keith needs to keep going out and performing well. And he did fine. He was okay. Like I say, he had some good moments. He had some bad moments. I'm biased. I think that Bears defense is pretty damn good. There's not a lot of opportunities there, and defensive line is probably the best opportunity, or offensive line. But like, you keep showing out there, and if you get let go, you get picked up by another team. You got to show out, and maybe somebody else will grab you. And I love Keith. Keith's one of my all-time favorites, not only just from what he did on the football field, but anybody who's ever had any interactions with the man, he's first class, dude. He is a phenomenal young man, and I want him to get all the flowers.
If Tip Ryman was a 4th-round draft pick, I assume he's going to make the Cardinals. I mean, they're already paying him guaranteed money. And, They already paid him
that
out
would be a
signing
big shocker
bonus.
to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Isaiah Adams was looking good for the Cardinals. You still got Tony Adams playing well. You've got obviously Spoon's one of the best players in the league for the Seahawks. I think Sidney Brown's coming off a torn ACL. Quan Martin's been showing out for the Commanders. You go down the list, there's just so many guys. I think Nate Hobbs, is he still on the Raiders?
Yeah. Nate Hobbs, I mean, and then Justin Hardy's still out there being one of the best special teams players in the NFL. So
Yeah.
There's so many Illini in the NFL. It's kind of wild to think about. They're putting them in there, and I expect more to come after this season. So you'll see an update from us. I'll announce it on Twitter what night we're going to start Fade the Deuce. So with that said, thank you so much for joining us again, Matt. And we'll be go ahead. You can finish up, Kev.
Yeah, one quick thing. Listen, Ryan and I have taken some jabs at Robert Rosenthal from Illini, just kind of just teasing, just this subtle little like we're not one of the 17 or whatever. But he had a Twitter thing going out today this week about to Illini fans about get your butt in the seats for the Kansas game. And I am 100% in line with what he's saying. If you have the availability to do your part to make that a sellout, like just do it. I share his sentiment 1,000% about it. There's nothing, and listen, my friends have participated in it. Guys I've left tailgates with have participated with it. Dude, there's nothing worse of a feeling than walking out of 70,000 people tailgating into a stadium with 35,000 people. And you turn around, if you walked up to the East Main balcony, if you could walk all the way up to the top and look around and see all the people still in their cars drinking beer, tailgating. Lord knows I love tailgating more than anybody else, but dude, you're there for the game. Like if you can find a way, get your butt in the seats and go to the Kansas game. Make that an environment that is impressive, dude. I watched the 91. I watched condensed clips of the 91 Ohio State game. By the way, it's the last time we beat Ohio State in Champaign. I was at the game in attendance. Like I grew up with that place being full, and it used to be an intimidating environment. It used to be a place that teams didn't really want to play because we filled the place. And I understand we haven't put the product on the field to substantiate that, but get that. You and me both, Bill. You and me both. Like, yes. But like, get your butt in the stands, man. Go to the game. Like, be there. Like, it's an opportunity. It's going to be a Friday night. I mean, hey, listen, you got to go to your kid's high school game. Go to your kid's high school game. The weather's going to be great.
Saturday night. Kansas is a Saturday night game.
Kansas is Saturday night. My apologies. Yeah, that's right. It's the 7th.
I'm bringing 6 from Texas with me, so
hey, he's doing
my job.
Another state. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, and I'm bringing my brother-in-law from Mexico who's never been to a college football game for the Michigan game. So like I'm right there with you. So
that's awesome. Yeah, so my wife's parents have never been to a college football game either. So
I would love 60,000 for Kansas, but 50 would be acceptable, and I'd be cool with that.
Well, my good buddy who I'm going to the Nebraska game was a big Nebraska fan. I've taken him to a couple Illinois games against Nebraska. In Champaign, I'm repaying it, so we'll be 2-2. He said it, dude. He's like, I've never seen tailgating like this before in my life. I've been to Ohio State, I've been to Michigan, I've been to Oklahoma, I've been to Nebraska, I've been to the cathedrals, some of the cathedrals of college football. We tailgate like nobody else's business. Just go to the game. Just to make that a part of your tailgate, go to the damn game.
You're already there.
I was wondering, I've never been a huge drinker, so I get why people like to go out and have fun, but like you can tailgate and throw a football around and not necessarily have to drink. But I never got the fans that stayed out there and didn't go to the game. I'm like, aren't we at this place to watch the game? Like I just never have understood that.
I got rules, man. I don't miss kickoff and I don't leave before the final whistle. So like I share Robert's sentiments on that one, man.
Let's see. So Sean, you were very demanding, and I will try to. You need to ask Dan Quinn that. That's probably better for Dan Quinn.
He'll be in the rotation.
Yeah, I'm not on that staff. I know that they're going to protect their investment, and I think he's cleared for contact now. And but these preseason games probably have not been worth it to just. Hey, let's see if that guy we just paid, $5 million. Let's see if he can play against the. Jaguars this week against their third stringers. They're not really worried about that. So I wish I had a better answer, but he will be playing this season. And real quick, Bill Moe, there used to be 76,000 inside. I heard that the Mike White, the Makovic era, that they had 77.
The Colorado game was insane,
Man.
It was the Michigan State game when I think it was Doug Higgins kicked the 5th field goal. We beat them 15-13. Like I just remember that as a kid, like the stadium just because I couldn't see whether or not the ball went in the uprights from where I was sitting, and just in unison. Yeah, dude, the place used to be insane, man.
Yep, and that's something that some of us miss a little bit, but yeah, I like what they've done to it. I'll be happy when they bring the horseshoe in have a little more success. Bring that horseshoe in, get some stands that kind of fade upwards and
closer to the field.
Yep. So that'll do it though for this week. Appreciate you guys getting to 10:30 Central Time. So that'll do it for this week's Keeping It Orange and Blue. You probably will see us this later. Not sure, but 100% next week for Fade the Dues. So that's Swami out.